All right, so welcome everybody to our general body meeting for today. We got, as I said earlier, a lot of stuff to share with you, and thanks for everybody just in the call and everybody who's watching the recording. There's going to be a lot of exciting news we want to share, and then we're going to be doing a presentation on using the Adobe Creative Cloud. So whether you're joining us for the first time, a few times already, English major or not, we feel like there's going to be a little something that everybody can gain from this, and so we're happy that you're here. And on that note, welcome to everybody here. If you're a newcomer, please consider filling out our membership application. It's totally free. We invite everybody to join us, whether or not you're an English major, a tech comm major, no matter if you're a senior or about to graduate, you're a freshman. Yeah, we just love having everybody become an official member of the club. So you can follow that link or you can scan that QR code and it puts you to a place where you can find our application. Just fill out a few questions and we get you hooked up to our mailing list, our social media, and all that other good stuff. And also we have a Discord server. You can follow the same link to find that. And Discord server gets you all our latest news. It's a good place to chat. And we just share a lot of cool stuff, or you can, of course, share memes and pets, our two best channels. So we have a lot of fun and there's a lot of great resources there. So do consider becoming a member and consider joining our Discord server too. And I'll leave that up on the screen for just a few seconds. Also, we really want to see your pets. I don't know if that was stressed enough. We need to see everyone's pets and everyone's cuteness. Just very important.
I would also, Matt, add that if you do join, we are expanding into doing more aggressive job search and helping people network into getting their first entry-level jobs and stuff. So that's a benefit to you all, besides seeing other people's pets, as John has mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we got both sides of it. That's probably the more important side, but it's debatable. But yeah, we do share a lot of opportunities. So thanks for mentioning that. And also, if anybody has anything they want to say or any questions, feel free to hop in because, like we said earlier, we pretty much keep things casual, and we love to just answer any questions you've got either. So next up, we have someone who wants to share a special opportunity with us today. Reached out to us earlier in the week. So Nefertari from the UCF President's Leadership Council is in this meeting with us, and she wants to share just ways that you can get involved in just leadership at the UCF level. So if you'd like to hop on, I'll pass it over to you, Nefertari.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. So as John said, my name is Nefertari, and I'm from the President's Leadership Council. So I'm just going to quickly kind of tell you a little bit about what it is and what the timeline looks like for applications. And then if you have any questions, you can feel free to just ask me any of them. But first, just to kind of explain a little bit about what it is. So if you're a part of PLC, basically what we do is we serve alongside the president to represent UCF. And it's a group of students. We've shown leadership, academic achievement, extracurricular activities, service to the community. And through that, through being a part of the council, you become an ambassador to the university and its mission. And so we do that through a whole bunch of different events, whether it be facilitating presidential events, hosting guests during football games, helping with commencement ceremonies, giving VIP campus tours, also giving back to like the local community by participating in community service events. And so in addition to that, there's also a lot of leadership opportunities and growth as a leader. So there's a lot of networking opportunities, public speaking opportunities. You get a professional headshot, business cards. There's a bunch of like workshops. You also get a lot of PLC and UCF gear and attire. So you get a professional suit, t-shirts, polo, you get a UCF lapel pin, and you do get a stipend of $500 a semester. And so in order to receive that stipend, the time commitment is 75 hours from when you get accepted, which is like around April to December. So 75 hours in that time, and then 50 hours in the spring semester. So it is a fall and spring commitment. And then once you're on it, you can keep being on it until you graduate. So you only have to apply once, but once you get in, it's a year commitment. And you achieve those hours, like they're actually pretty easy to achieve the hours through the events. We have like bi-weekly meetings that you attend, there are retreats, workshops, like I said, service opportunities, helping with commencement, all those things will get you service hours. And a lot of those things like the retreats, commencement, and biweekly meetings are mandatory. So you're going to be there anyways and get the hours. And so just in terms of like eligibility, you do have to have a junior standing. So that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in your third year at UCF, but you do have to have 60 or more credit hours by the end of spring 2022. So the spring coming up. And graduate students are eligible also. I'm not sure if any of you are graduate students, but you're welcome to apply also. Have a 3.0 GPA, be a full-time student, and just be passionate about UCF and kind of advocating for its goals and kind of working to spread your passion about UCF. So just to like look at the timeline, applications open January 18th, 2022. So you still have plenty of time. And they close on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2022. So a day you will not forget. And so basically you have like that time to fill out the application. And then if you get in, there will be a council orientation and retreat that'll take place in the spring semester. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer any of them. You can also follow us along on Instagram at UCF PLC. And if you also Google UCF PLC, you can see the website that we have. So that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any questions? All right, well, perfect. Well, that's all from me. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you guys have a great meeting.
Yeah, definitely. And
Bye.
thanks for coming through and sharing this. This was an awesome opportunity to hear about. And yeah,
Thank you
hopefully
so
you all are
much.
encouraged to just apply to that if you want to learn how to get more involved at UCF. So thanks again, Nefertari.
Yeah, and I'm just going to put my email in the chat in case anyone has any questions. Feel free to just shoot me an email. I'm happy to help. All right.
It sounds perfect.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks again. Bye. So here at FTC, we like to keep you on your toes by talking about cats 1 second and then throwing a leadership opportunity at you the next. So yeah, as she said, there are some great opportunities there. Just at the UCF President's Leadership Council, she was excited to just, come to our meeting and speak a few minutes about it and just say that it's, a very real thing that you can apply for if you want to get more involved as a student at UCF. So yeah, just found that pretty cool. And she dropped her email in the chat. So feel free to reach out to her if you have any questions or you want to, talk to her about how to get involved in that program. Next up, a little icebreaker, just cause I felt like doing this just cause I'm in the Halloween spirit now and we're gonna be talking about some Halloween stuff. So we're going into breakout rooms for 2 or 3 minutes with a very important question. What is your favorite Halloween movie? Everybody's gotta have at least one. And if you don't like scary movies, maybe what's the one that has scared you the most? Because everybody's got that too. So I'm just gonna make breakout rooms for like 2 or 3 minutes. And then just hope that I don't mess up these breakout rooms and that they last like 20 minutes by accident because Zoom doesn't like me sometimes. But anyways, yeah, just hop in and share what your favorite or most scary movie is and go. I can tell there was some good, some good scary movie sharing since everyone was joining in like the last few seconds. So wish I could have heard what went on in them. But yeah, now that you all are back, getting settled and everything, I'm curious, what answers did y'all come up with for scary movies?
Hi. My scary movie that I chose was Nightmare Before Christmas because I really like the claymation style. Really creative.
I've never watched a scary movie, so I looked up list of Halloween movies and I chose Clue, which is funny. So that's what I went with.
Yeah, me and Renee both were like, we don't like horror movies, and turns out we both like Hocus Pocus.
I was wondering if Final Destination counted.
I'd say it counts. It is a scary movie.
Cassandra in the chat says not a big fan of scary Halloweens, but likes 1995's Casper.
Casper is great.
Oh my goodness, Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School.
The Scooby-Doo movies were so good though. Like, I think about them every once in a while. I'm like, what? They had no business being that good. Right? Is anybody in here, just curious, is anybody in here like a big horror fan, like on the other end of the spectrum? Fair enough. Everyone playing it safe.
Does the if Halloween TV shows count, there's lots of good Halloween TV specials that there's lots of good that might be a better way to go about it instead of movies. If you don't want to play it safe there's lots of crazy TV specials like American Horror Stories first season had a really good Halloween episode.
Yeah, Halloween TV specials are fun. Oh, Jessica in the chat was Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin. Yes, that one is such a classic. I gotta be sure to watch that again this Halloween.
For some reason, my brain started to read that as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the Great Pumpkin, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, have you seen the Oompa Loompas though? Scary movie material. And I heard they're remaking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory again, either into a movie or a play, but they're remaking it in some kind. So that just came to mind.
Is that like the rumor with like Timothy Chalamet? Oh no. Am I confusing that with something else?
I'm not sure. Not too sure. Just heard in the news that they were remaking Chocolate Factory. I wonder who they're gonna pick for it. Oh yeah, Timothy Chalamet is playing Willy Wonka, Rebecca said. Yeah. I gotta look out for it. I gotta figure out what other things he's done because it seems like it'll be a good remaster. But yeah, anyways, these are all some good answers on just, getting in the Halloween spirit, some Halloween movies, some Halloween shows. I feel like next week it's just gonna hit super hard when it comes to that. Just tons of Halloween, and then immediately Christmas, of course. But first, tons of Halloween. You know how it goes. All right, so cool.
Oh, Timothy's actually in that new Dune movie that's coming out tonight.
Ooh, okay. I gotta look out for him. I know he's gonna be good, and that movie's gonna be good. But speaking of Halloween, we have not just one game night, but 2 game nights planned. It's crazy. So, and anybody who anybody is welcome. Anybody is ready to or willing to bring a friend, bring people along for it, because we have one in-person one and an online one, just so so there can be fun times all around. And so we put out a survey recently, just asking, if there would be interest in having an in-person, just Halloween game night or Halloween event on campus, and a decent amount of people said yes. And so we were thinking of having a little get together. So I think this could just be a time when we kind of like brainstorm what we want, when we might want to do it, and what we want to do for it. The floor is open and everything. So I'm pretty sure the most popular days in the poll, at least, were Thursday and Saturday for the in-person one. So what do y'all think, for those of you who'd be comfortable and able to make it, of course, if you'd be interested in attending, and what days work for you? Floor is open.
For me, Saturday is best, I guess, but I could probably make Thursday work too.
All right, that's one vote for, well, one vote for both. But okay, leading on a Saturday. I can do either day. But anybody else have a strong leaning, like one day they're not available? Right. Seems like overall either both work or neither works. I'm just gonna assume that y'all are fine with either day if we end up doing it. So yeah, cool. We can probably just, talk around in the Discord, decide on just a day one final time, and then take it from there. But either way, we're gonna get a few people together, maybe share some just Halloween good times, maybe a little food too, something like that. And next thing, what kind of games or activities would you want to see too? Because I don't think FTC has had, like a full in-person event for ages now, which is kind of just hitting me. We haven't had like a full formal like in-person event and stuff like that. So we want to make it a fun time. So are there any kind of games that you guys would want to see, or like types of games, like video games, board games, card games, stuff like that? Maybe bring in a Halloween movie. Then again, most of us were saying we aren't scary movie people. We could bring in Casper, who knows? But yeah, what do y'all think for kind of activities or games, if there's any ideas? All right, unanimous vote for Casper. Got it. No, I'm just kidding. What were we gonna say, Caitlin?
I was just gonna say, you might want to specify whether you're asking for activities for the in-person or the online one.
Right, right. I guess specifically the in-person. We could do for both. So if it were in person, what kind of things might be fun? Because we're pretty flexible with it.
I can run Werewolf, which is an in-person game.
Oh, okay. I haven't played that actually.
That's tons of fun. That's a good idea.
I'd be down.
Yeah, I would try it. I haven't played it before, but it sounds like it'd be fun.
It's really fast to pick up. I know a lot of like in-person activities, but I feel like that might be more a discussion for like the actual game.
True. Yeah, we can always do some brainstorming while we're there too. There's a lot of cool game ideas we can do. But I'm down for Werewolf. And of course the usual is like I can probably bring my laptop and get some Jackbox games on the screen if we want to do that. Figure out how to do that. And if we are able to use a screen, here's an in-person game that I really wanted to try with the group. Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. Like, for those unfamiliar, it's basically a computer game where the person looking at the screen has to defuse a bomb, and the people not looking at the screen, they're given like an instruction manual. They can either print it out or pull it up on their phone, and that's to direct the person looking at the bomb on how to like defuse it. It gets very crazy, as you can probably imagine, by like 5 people yelling, "No, this wire! No, this wire! No, this wire!" and then everything going crazy. So, yeah, I definitely want to see if we can pull that up. Might just do that.
Oh, And
Yeah.
I would note for the in-person, for anybody who kind of wants to come, uh, we're very likely to be having a sort of costume party, so come dressed up as you like.
Yes, that is a good point. The costume part, yes, anybody's encouraged to show up with a costume or just any accessories if they want to. I know I will. I've been getting pretty hyped for it. I don't know if I should reveal what costume idea I have or if I should just show up in it, but either way, costumes encouraged. It's going to be very silly. I would just say that. All right, cool. So those are some good ideas for it. And then for the online game night, of course, we've got Jackbox games. I'm pretty sure a new Jackbox pack came out.
It
But
did.
yeah, so if we can get hold of that, like not to hijack your account, Ben, but I know you have most of the Jackbox games. Did you pick up 8?
I didn't, but Bethany did, and she shares her game. So yes, I have a copy I have borrowed.
Okay, perfect. Because I think that'd be a cool new one we could do. So yeah, online game nights. We usually play Jackbox and just Scribblio 2, a drawing game. Things where like anybody can join and just use their phone and hop on for a fun time. So yeah, look forward to that. Friday at 6:30.
To Rebecca, yes, we do use Roll20, and we have been doing virtual D&D sessions. Next time, we don't do them very often, but that is a good point that maybe we could look into doing something like that.
Yeah, true. Always good to keep D&D in mind. Gotta have another session sometime, and it's always great.
We should also play like Among Us and do the hide and seek mode.
Good idea.
Yes,
Anyway.
absolutely.
It's 7:02. Do you think we should get moving on again?
Yeah, good point. So we've done a lot of good discussion on game night. So we can move on to the next parts. So there are a few more announcements. So they'll probably run like a little bit past an hour. The meeting is what I'm thinking, but nothing too crazy, hopefully. But yeah, game nights next week. More details coming soon. And next up is the mentoring program. So at our last inner body meeting, we talked about the STC FTC mentoring program. And in short, you can apply to be coached by a professional mentor in the TechCom field. We partner with the professional organization STC, and they just provide their members as mentors to, pair up with our members and, teach valuable TechCom skills, give professional advice, and so on and so forth. The pairing lasts a year or longer, depending on if the pair wants to continue. It's going to be held online, and members are required to be an STC Florida member to join after they submit the application. The application itself is free. So that closes tonight. You can access the link below or just look up STC Florida mentoring program, and you can apply by the end of the day if you want to get a mentor. And next up, I wanted to plug a couple English related opportunities. One is UCF Sigma Tau Delta, University's English Honor Society, which is up and running again this semester. It's welcoming new members, it just had its elections, and it has a new Discord server too. So anybody who's interested, membership in it opens up a lot of great things such as scholarship opportunities that the society provides, publishing opportunities, since Sigma Tau Delta itself is just one chapter in part of a national organization made for and by those studying English for English majors. And it offers a lot of great things for students. It's similar to FTC, but just for English literacy, promoting literacy and open to just English students as a whole. And if you like to apply for the Honor Society, there's some information on the screen. You can check out those links, join the Discord, ask some questions. But yeah, they're currently accepting members, and we'd be happy to get more in our own UCF chapter. We're slowly growing, slowly but surely. We started, what's the word? So we just started having meetings a few weeks back, and we're hoping to get some more fun meetings and informational things like opportunities for English majors in future meetings too. So yeah, feel free to join and learn more. And I'll drop the link to it in the chat. And that link should have Sigma Tau Delta information in it. And next up is Cypress Dome accepting submissions. So this is something that opened up recently, and Cypress Dome has been just accepting submissions for its literary magazine. So if you are someone who wants to just get your work published, such as fiction writing or nonfiction writing, or if you draw, you can submit art too. That's an exciting opportunity right there. And you may have seen just Cypress Dome magazines just on campus or even their digital editions. It's a very nice magazine, and just it's great to get your work published in there. And I just wanted to give them a shout out. So that opportunity is open now, and they're accepting early bird submissions for the next week and a half or so. And then after that, they're accepting just normal submissions. And early bird submissions get just the benefit of receiving feedback on the work before you just go ahead and go through the full submission process. So yeah, just shouting out Cypress Dome because they're an awesome opportunity to get published as an ECF student.
Real fast, I do work with Cypress Dome also. Talking to me will not help you get in because we do not know names, but I also do want to say that if you do like just art only, like not like graphic narratives, we are accepting submissions for that, and you could potentially get your art on the front cover of this upcoming magazine. So if that's your interest, I would still encourage you to apply.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. And yes, Caitlin is our Cypress Dome representative because she is, I mean, not like official. You know what, let's make it official. New title, Cypress Dome representative.
I don't need more.
Yes, giving you like 10 different titles. But yeah, she works in Cypress Dome. So yeah, thanks for sharing that extra info. That's exciting news too. Yeah, next up. Is next one the big news? I don't know. I'm gonna do a fake drum roll anyways. I forgot the slide order. We have, well, this is one. This is one of two big news. Internships, jobs, and scholarships. We've had a ton recently come in. And I came across one or two just the other day too. So this is just a good time to apply for internships and scholarships, jobs, and scholarships really. There is one that came in from L3 Harris looking for a new grad technical writer. So if you're a recent graduate or graduating soon, look into that. And I'll be sharing this PowerPoint with the links and everything afterward. And then for internships, we have some from Epic Games, and all these looking for tech writers or technical related positions. So Epic Games in the spring and fall, Universal Parks in the spring. Google is looking for one in summer in their California headquarters. NASA is looking for some as well. Currently, their applications have opened. And Nintendo, that one came to me as a surprise. I just saw it on social media and I was like, let me put this on here. But they're also looking for technical internships in Washington. So those are all some great job and internship opportunities if you want to take note of that or look forward for the PowerPoint coming out so that those links are there. Now is a great time to apply for internships, which are a great to have as a student. And then there's scholarships lastly. UCF has some student government scholarships out right now. Lots of great ones. So feel free to look into those. And STC also has a scholarship for STC student members. $500, you can apply by the end of the year. For UCF, they're taking it until the 31st of this month. So lots of scholarships around too, lots of great opportunities. So long story short, if you're looking for academic and professional opportunities, now is a great time for it. And next up, maybe now the drum roll. Yes, it is FTC t-shirt design contest. This is something that we wanted to review for a while to you guys. We have a contest coming up for FTC t-shirt designs because next semester we might be getting some for you. And so if you're someone with who just wants to share a creative design with us, someone with some art that you want to share, someone with just an idea that you want to share with us, we are accepting submissions for a new t-shirt. And winners get the opportunity to possibly have their art featured on an FTC t-shirt. they can possibly get their own free t-shirt with their design featured on it. And of course, most importantly, a unique role on our Discord server. So you can forever be recognized as the t-shirt champion. So anyways, you can submit digital or hand-drawn art, and the application details can be found at the link tree for UCF, or the link tree for FTC, which I'll put in the chat. So I put it right in the chat right now. And is the role name T-shirt champion? It's unofficial, but it very well might be. Then it's Supreme Overlord. You know what? Maybe another perk could be that the winner gets to choose what kind of T-shirt champion title they want to have. Maybe even Supreme Overlord. So if someone wants to be Supreme Overlord in our Discord server, this is the opportunity. What are we getting ourselves into? But anyways, this is going to be open for a month. And then following that, we're going to have a period where members can vote on their favorite t-shirt designs. So feel free to look into that link. We'll be posting it on just our Discord and everything like that. And yeah, if you want to submit some art for a t-shirt, now's the time. Open for 1 month, and we'd love to see what you come up with. And just wanted to pause since there have been a lot of announcements and this t-shirt competition announcement. If anybody has any questions or comments on just any of this so far. All right, all good. Everyone ready to become Supreme Overlords and/or t-shirt champions? Right. Sounds good. I'm taking that scoff as a yes. I'm ready to see someone become Supreme Overlord. No, I'm just messing with you. And for anyone interested, also, next semester, we're going to be figuring out just ways that you can have the shirts delivered to you. We're figuring out ways that we're going to just go through the logistics of all of it, but hopefully we can accommodate to just anyone and everyone, including those online, so that no matter whether you're on campus or off campus, you can, just buy the t-shirt with the design on it, so on and so forth. And for whoever becomes a t-shirt champion / Supreme Overlord, which is becoming more and more official the more I say it, we will make sure that you get your shirt as well. It's pretty much becoming official. Let me move on. So that was all our announcements, which was a lot. And again, we'll be just sharing these things in the Discord as well. But thank you all for sticking through with it. And I'd like to pass it over to the next part of the presentation, the workshop on the Adobe Creative Cloud from our very own Caitlyn. So pass it off to you.
All right, thank you, John. So hi, everybody. I'm going to say that this is going to be relatively free form. And also, if all you came for were the announcements, you will not hurt my feelings if you jump out now. I hope you had a nice time. So moving on to my section of this, I do want to partially apologize. I did have intentions to try to show you all Photoshop, but Photoshop has decided to rebel against me today. So the options are going to be between Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign. But since I want this to be as useful as possible to you, I want to open the floor up pretty much for the entirety of the presentation and just let you all voice what you'd like to see first and what kind of questions you have.
So I guess to start off, what are the main programs in the Adobe Creative Cloud?
Okay, so pretty much off the bat, I would say the three you're going to be using the most are going to be Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. They are just exceptionally useful. If you have interests in animation, though, you will probably be using Adobe Animate, although there are other programs, and depending on what company you work for, they might make you use a different one. And I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think it's Flashpoint. And Lightbox. They are both also used towards animation and work along with Illustrator pretty frequently. So if you're working with an animation studio like Disney, Universal, any of the game design companies, you'll probably be dealing with these at some point. Yep. I keep forgetting that it's not called the Creative Suite anymore. Okay. Okay, so how expensive is it right now? If you are a student at UCF right now, is the best time to have like a membership. They do make you pay monthly, but if you are a student at UCF and you have to be able to prove this, it's not that hard. It's only $19.99 per month, which sounds like a lot until you realize that Adobe Got Any Other Way is about 80 or so a month. It's not funny. I will warn you before you get it. It just auto draws from your account. You will have to use a credit card, and there is a withdrawal fee. You can't just leave it. It is not on a yearly basis, but when you want to cancel, there will be a $40 fee. I don't know why they do this. It is not fair, but I feel like it's fair warning. But if you think that you'll get a lot of use out of it, I would still say it's a great deal. Has anyone gotten certified for Illustrator and Photoshop? I don't think anybody on our team is. I know there are ways to do it. I think if you go through another kind of benefit, you go through the school. LinkedIn Learning, I believe that you can get a certification through them on these programs, and a lot of others. So I would totally suggest checking that out. Although you will need the program for yourself to practice, obviously. Are there any questions I missed? And like I said, if you guys like want to unmute and ask your questions out loud, I am very willing to let you guys do that. I actually would welcome it because I want to actually be able to show you all what some of these programs look like. Like I have them open, I can start screen sharing if anybody's got a preference about which program out of Illustrator and InDesign they want to see. And that kind of
Hey,
stuff.
Caitlin.
Okay.
I don't have a specific question, but I've done the LinkedIn Learning. I've done a couple of courses through LinkedIn Learning, so I'm vaguely familiar with Photoshop and Illustrator, and I've done it a little bit through my work, but I'm still getting used to it. Would you mind doing just a basic walkthrough? Like you open up the program and then kind of what the different like menu options are? Unless somebody else has a specific question, but that's something that just opening up the program, it already feels overwhelming, if that makes sense.
Okay, which one was it, InDesign or Illustrator, or do you kind of want to do both?
Just, well, I've heard that if you know one, then the other programs make sense, like there's some similarities. But either any of them, really.
Okay, let's see here. Well, I see I'll probably start with Illustrator then because I'm a little more familiar with it, and also for a lot of stuff you do in InDesign that will kind of be a base point if you want any sort of art pieces in it. But I see, before I get into it, I see a comment in here. What's the major difference between Illustrator and InDesign? Okay, so Illustrator is basically a drawing program. It works, I swear I constantly get these mixed up. It is a vector image program where you can make all sorts of designs and stuff that can be scaled as small or as large as you want because the mathematical formulas involved. It is absolutely fantastic for making logos, which is one of the things that I've actually been using it for very recently, since I have been redesigning the Cypress Dome logo. But it's also just really good for making pretty much any art piece you want. I know some people like Photoshop, but it drives me nuts when it comes to this. InDesign is more of a document producing program. I like using it for making my resumes. It's a lot like Word, but less evil, if that makes sense. Like you can very much more easily format headers and stuff and make sure that they all look the same. It's a lot faster to set a format style instead of having to constantly edit and change the way Word makes you to do it. Okay.
I just want to comment that I wish that was the headline of InDesign, just InDesign. It's like Word, but less evil. It's perfect.
Word is good for a lot of things. Like, don't get me wrong, I adore it, but it is not friendly on some things.
Very true.
For those of you who can access the chat, Jessica is posting a lot of interesting insights into the programs. I'm not going to read them all because I think she's adding them faster than I can. But yeah, she has a really good explanation about what InDesign is and where it came from. So unless anybody else has specific questions, I might just jump into showing Illustrator off and kind of just showing the basics of how it works. And if you want to jump out, at this point, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Obviously, do what you need to do, and I'm glad that you showed up. So any last questions before I get going? Okay, seems like that's a no, so let's go. All right, can you all see this?
Yep.
John, can I just ask you to keep an eye on the chat for me in case anybody's using that to communicate instead of opening up their mic?
Yeah, definitely. I'll screen the chat for you.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to open a new document real fast because I think that might be a little easier to show some of the tools, but I might open one of my more recent documents to kind of show you what you can get doing. So first thing first, I need to make Zoom smaller because it is in the way. Okay, so first thing you always want to do with InDesign is check that you have layers. Your first layer will always be your basic canvas. That's this thing. It can be you can have as many canvases as you want on this. I prefer to work with one. It should make my life easier. But you can also, with layers, you can turn them off. You can turn them on with this little eye thing. And you can add a layer by coming down to this little section right here and going click. And you could lock this layer so nothing on it would be messed with. So let me just show something real fast. So this thing right here is my rectangle tool. If I click on it, I can just draw a basic rectangle. And it looks like that. It has a border right now. It has a white fill. If I want to change the fill, I come to this right here. I double click it and it gives me my color picker. I can either type in I believe this uses an RGB system. So no, it doesn't. Wait, is RGB or hex? It's one of the two. I think if I'm not losing my mind, it's hex. But if somebody knows better, hop in and correct me. But let's say for now, I don't really want a specific color. I'm just experimenting. So I'm going to go with this kind of cherry red. That's a bit bright, but hey. Let's say though I don't want this border, I can click this little arrow here. Hey, never mind, I just tricked myself. But yeah, you can, so this thing right here is the stroke. It's what in Illustrator and pretty much any of the other Adobe products will be the border of a shape will be referred to. So if this thing lets me swap the two colors around, but I like it this way, but let's say I don't want the border, I'll click this, and then I can click none, this little shape right here, it automatically takes away. I could do that for the fill as well, but I don't want to do that right now. So fun little thing that you can do, because I'm on this arrow, it's my basic selection tool. It should be your auto default whenever you enter the program. I can mess with this shape this way. And it kind of lets me mess with the shape in a general sense. Like I can move it. I can round all the corners at once, like this. But let's say I don't like that. Okay, so here is a very tricky thing. It takes a little while to get used to it. Once it's second nature, though, it is probably one of the most helpful things that you can know for these programs. On a Mac system, you will want to hit the Command key and Z. On a PC system or any other thing that is not Apple, you will want to hit Control Z. So, and it just automatically undoes it for you. But let's say I only want to mess with one of these corners. I want to go to this tool right here. It's the direct selection tool. What it lets me do is select one part of the shape and I can alter it without messing with the others. So I can do something like this without affecting the rest of the shape. With these tools, you see this little tiny arrow here next to these things. If you click it and just hold, it gives you extra options. Any of these tools have it. Most of the time you'll find that you really only need to use the basic tool, except for this one, because it gives you extra shapes. I don't know why they call it an ellipse tool. It's literally just circles. But they like being fancy in Adobe. So anyways, but I like this as it is, although I'm going to Adobe fight me. Thank you. So I'm going to put it like this because I think it's fun. And I'm going to link. Okay, so, but let's say that I need something else going on. If you go to the properties tab, you can see a lot of this stuff. I would never suggest using this here to change your shape unless you are very familiar with what you're doing. Or at least these properties. It's easier just to edit it on the document, but you can do basic stuff like this. These two tools will flip it as you like, which is pretty frequently helpful. Then if you go down here to appearance, I've already shown the fill and the stroke. If I wanted to add the stroke back, you can change the depth of it or the width as much as you like. But like I said, I prefer most of the time to work with no stroke, unless I have a reason to need a border. But another cool thing I like is that you can mess with the opacity. So you can lower it as much as you want. This is really good when you're tracing over objects because Illustrator actually lets you input pictures pretty frequently, which is always awesome when you need to copy a shape, but you don't want to use an actual image. So anyways, going back to my layers, I'm going to move this down because I was working on the wrong layer, but I'm going to lock it. That way I can't mess with this shape anymore, no matter what else I need to add. And I'm going to move to layer 1. So let's say for this that I want to add a star on top of it. And I'm going to make it yellow. And now I'm going to go back to my just regular select tool and I'm going to move it. And I want to turn it just a little bit. Sometimes this program can be just a little finicky. That's just because it's trying to be helpful, but sometimes it doesn't know its own borders. So whenever you're having trouble, my suggestion would just be move your mouse back a little bit and just be slow and methodical with your movements. You'll have a lot easier of a time. although since I've covered a lot, I'm going to check in with the chat real fast to see if anything is going on.
So far, so good.
Okay, great. So, I'm not, y'all, I promise my art skills are better than this, but it's 7:30 at night, so. A lot of, let me see if I can add something real fast to show how this works. So one thing that I like is that you can rename your tabs so that you can always remember what you're doing. I always suggest that your bottommost layer should be your reference layer. So I'm just going to title this ref. And then what you can do is you can go to File. Where did it go? Okay, y'all. Place. And then let me just find a random picture that I have around. So I'm going to shift. Whenever you want something to stay in its proportions on this program, you want to make sure to put it in, hit shift before you click, and then hold it as you drag. That makes sure that no matter what you do, it will stay in the correct shape and like size and everything, and the ratios all stay even. So I'm going to, with my ref page, I'm going to lock it because I don't want anything else to happen to it. And now I'm going to get rid of these two things. If I want to delete a layer, I can go down here and click yes. That's really one of the best things about this program is that it will not let you close out of anything without making doubly sure that you want to do that. So one tool that I really like in this program is this one right here. It can be a little bit of a pain in the butt to get used to. So I'm going to actually start with this one real fast because what it is it is the sort of tool you'll use when you want to draw just straight lines. And I can come here and I can go click and drag. I can change the shape as much as I want. Same thing, always double click when you want a specific point and make sure it is highlighted. Every other point on your shape should be white. These are anchor points. But the one that is dark red will let you do this kind of stuff. So anyways, I'm going to delete this shape because I don't need it. So this tool is the pen tool's kind of more fancy brother. What it does is it creates curved lines for you pretty much automatically. So, and I'm sick of this yellow, so we're going to turn it into a yeah, that'll work. So with the curvature tool, it's almost always going to give you kind of one of these rougher shapes. I'm going to zoom in real fast. I do that by hitting Control plus, or I think on a Mac it would be Command plus. Most of the things are the same. Just assume whenever I say Control that what you want if you're using a Mac is the Command key. But I'm coming back to this direct selection tool and I'm going to double click on this. And these, so on either end of my thing, you can see these little points here. What they are manipulation areas. So I'm going to click on this thing and I'm going to shorten it, and that changes the shape of the curve. But I don't like that shape, so I'm going to undo. But basically, you can manipulate as much as you want with this kind of stuff and make all sorts of weird looking. So then I'm going to come over here and kind of create another. And I want this to be deeper. I'm now trying to make a blob monster because that just seems like a good thing to do. So basically, for the curvature tool, you'll be wanting to edit whenever you use it, kind of do the rough outline of the shape you want, and then use this direct selection tool. So moving down to show you how that can kind of be used in a helpful way, I'm going to delete the layer I just made, because actually I don't need to do that. I'm going to scroll up, go to the automatic selection thing, make sure it's selected. It'll be surrounded in this red box, and then delete. But now I'm going to scroll down, and on top of my locked page, I'm going to take my curvature tool, and I'm going to start tracing over it. You want to make kind of frequent-ish points on any kind of thing you're trying to copy over. And now you can see that I'm kind of covering up my shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to properties, and right here in this area, you want to click the opacity, scale it down to about 20, and then go back to layers so that you know what you're messing with. And then continue tracing over it until we now have majestic verb. And click. And now I have a full shape. So I can obviously work with this in a lot of ways to try to soften it out. A lot of times it's just going to be this kind of stuff of clicking on points and shortening these lead lines to tell them to make the curve less severe. And while I'm doing this kind of stuff, just cleaning the shape up, does anybody have something that they want to ask, or something they'd like me to go a little more in depth with along this line of the topic?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious. So you can get very specific with where you place the pins, right? So
Yeah.
if, for example, you wanted to just outline the whole bird, each feather and everything, does it have that level of power?
Yeah, I would warn you that when you're doing that, you want to do it before you close the shape. The way I have, it gets very, very annoying to try to add points onto this. I haven't quite mastered that part of it myself, but I can try to see. I can show you what happens when you try to do that. So I'm going to zoom in, and let's say I want these brilliant like wing feathers because they're really large and majestic. So if I try to click on this, oh yay, it actually does. I guess, oh yeah, they recently updated. The last time I tried this, it did not want to work with me on that. Now, listen here. Like sometimes it does this to you where no matter your best intention, it will somehow find ways to spite you. So but yeah, so I could actually go in and edit in these. Like I said, always make sure you double click. I sometimes am still not good at that myself.
And then, oh, sorry.
Oh, go for it.
So if you're doing something and you want it to be symmetrical, could you do half the bird and then copy into another layer and then just reflect it over so that both sides are the same?
Okay.
Or would you? Yeah.
My suggestion was something like that. If you want something to be perfectly symmetrical, I'm going to come off the bird real fast to show how this would be done. I'm going to switch to this just to make sure I'm not selected on this anymore. But I'm going to scroll up. And what I would tend to do, especially if it's a weird shape, like let me just. Okay, so what I would tend to do at this point is click it, Control Alt, drag it over. That's how you copy something in this, is Control Alt or Command Alt. And then I would tend to go to properties and then this button right here, flip horizontally, and then kind of align them. So I can hit Control Shift, select them both. And then in here, this section right here, I can align them by their centers, and I can align them like this. And then if I wanted to, I can actually connect them with this tool right here. And now they're one thing. So I can just go whoop, whoop, and flip it upside down. Now it kind of looks like a weird rabbit. And yeah, so that would usually be how I would suggest it. There are other methods of doing it, but that's just how I prefer to because I find it easiest. And then if I wanted to ungroup these, I would hit Control Shift G. Okay, it doesn't want to work with me, so actually, that's my bad. Sorry, I just realized I'm being silly here. Because I use that tool here, they are grouped into one shape. They cannot be unseparated except through the Control Z method. But if I wanted to leave them two separate shapes, I could go up here to Objects, hit Group or Control G if you want a shortcut, and they would still be movable together. But it lets you undo it after you get it set somewhere. And you could hit Ungroup, and now I can. Thank you. Okay, I will warn you real fast. If you click too fast, too many times on one object, it will the program will super focus onto this one thing. You cannot interact with anything else. The way you want to get out of that is by hitting the escape key. It is not a state you typically want to be in. So I'm going to move this back here again, and I'm going to align it the horizontal and vertical. Hey. All right, you. Okay, and I'm just going to combine them because I want the, but I hope that kind of helps a little bit. Anybody else have questions about those kind of tools? Or like I said, at any point, feel free to interrupt me and ask a question. How's the chat doing?
I'll just highlight some comments in the chat. There was some conversation about how just using different layers is usually how technical writers make their documentation and make diagrams of hardware. So programs like this just separate things into layers, Jessica was saying, and just also copying based off of a real photo. So these are real tools that are used in the TechCom world.
So
And also just to comment on how it's neat to how this whole process is neat, and seeing the curvature tool on top of a shape is a really useful function.
okay, nice. Well, coming back to this bird thing that I was showing you, now I have kind of a basic shape because I could clean this up a lot more. As a matter of fact, it would probably be suggested, but for right now, let's just pretend that this looks like an amazing hawk instead of a weird blobby rip-off Batman symbol. So now that I've got my shape, I can actually get rid of, you don't really want to delete your reference page most of the time in case something else happens, but you can not have to worry it by clicking this little eyeball here. And now you don't see it anymore, so you can alter as much as you need to. I'm going to zoom out real fast so I can see my whole canvas. And let's say I want these two shapes now, so I can do this. Okay, so here's another problem that you'll sometimes run into. Whatever the shapes will appear and layer on top of each other in whatever order you created them. You can get around this though by going to Object, Align, Arrange, sorry. And you can bring to front or bring forward. So the difference between these is that bring to front will supersede over anything else in this program. It will automatically jump it to the top. If you only wanted to bring it forward above like a certain object, but there's still other objects above it that you want to stay that way, you want to hit bring forward. So I'm just going to do that. and a line kind of like this. So that's kind of how you get away with those kind of things. I'm trying to think what else could be shown. This here, this T thing, this is the text tool. So usually you'll want to apply your text on a new layer. You can do it on the same layer as everything else. I wouldn't typically suggest it. It just makes it easier to edit things, because when you have a lot going on the page, it's easier when you have your images to lock it and then add your text on the layer you want. And whenever something's locked, you cannot select it. So with Illustrator, it's going to automatically insert this kind of lorem ipsum text. But a lot of times you don't want that because nobody wants to read lorem ipsum. So let's just make fun of, pretend we're making a brand thing. I can come over here. This is the text size. And I can center it here. This is centering in the way that Word would do it, but you can also center it in the box using this area type section and clicking that. You could also bottom it, or you can essentially do justify in this. I would not suggest that half of the time. It's actually very weird. I like it centered most of the time. It makes it easier. This thing is for the kerning. So if I don't like how close these letters are, stop it. Word. Okay, wait. Sorry. Sometimes if you aren't right on the word, basically make sure you always have this little like symbol for selecting and text stuff, because if you don't, it will sometimes try to open a new text box, and that's usually not helpful. So if I don't like the kerning though, which is kind of the spacing between the letters, I can come here, and I would usually suggest not messing with the automatic kerning. Like if something doesn't have good kerning in the first place, don't screw with it. Okay, so Adobe's not going to work with me on this tonight, but like I said, most of their fonts are really good. Like you can come up here and you can actually filter really well in this program. So if I click this, it lets me choose between a lot of different font types. This is sans serif, this has serifs, slab serif, script, which is basically stuff that looks like calligraphy. This is most of the really decorative fonts. Monospace, which is where every letter is the exact same shape. Handwritten, and more decorative fonts. The kind of differences are shown somewhat in the shape of the letters. And then you can also select fonts that are only heavyweight, which is bold, extended length with high contrast. So let's say I want a bold font with a high contrast. And this is what it gives you. It automatically selects down to its pool. I kind of like this one. So, but you can scroll over it and it will let you try each of the fonts before you have to select one. And then I can do something like this. And if I type right now, it's not going to let me see what I did because my text box is too small. So you have to come to this arrow right here, the clear one selection. What you want to do is grab this box, click it this way, and then go back to your text tool and continue what you were up to. So I want this to be tinier by FTC. Hey, I should remember to add spaces. And then usually you'll want to change between your headers and stuff, the type of text you're using. So if you want to clear your filters, you have to do it manually most of the time. I know actually I'm lying, there's a clear all function right in front of my face. I would usually suggest when you do something like that were kind of more highly, that you use kind of a more normal-ish font. What am I? Stop it. Okay. And we're just going to go with that. Thank you. And I can also change the text color. So when you highlight text in this, you want to go over here. It looks a little weird, but it's the fill. And you can click it and it will bring up this thing again. Let's say we want kind of a gray. So that just brings less attention. Then you can unclick and there you go. A lot of people will suggest, unless it's a very minimal amount of text in this sort of thing, you should use InDesign. Like you would copy this, save this, and export it into an InDesign file. But I would suggest that if you're only using a minimal amount of text, go ahead and use it on the Illustrator side. So now that I have this a little more arranged, I'm going to close this up a bit. It highlights what it'll look like as you move it. But now they're kind of close. So what I'm going to do is highlight them both. I'm going to highlight this one. And it gives you an automatic distance between these things. What this tool does is whatever's highlighted, it increases or decreases the space between it and the thing above it. So I'm going to make it 36. And then I'm also going to just kind of mess around with this, see what happens, kind of expand it a bit. So I kind of like this spread out. And that's kind of the basics on the text tool in this program. So questions, concerns, comments?
In the chat, we have a couple comments. Amy says that she loves the filter option. And Jessica said you can also drop a .ai file in InDesign and open it from inside InDesign. I believe they remain linked if you want.
Yeah, I think that is correct. Like I said, for basic stuff like this, I kind of tend to work with the text in this program, but yeah, that is absolutely correct. And if you were trying to create a sort of magazine style look or something, I would definitely suggest only making the logos and images in this sort of a program while leaving any textual stuff to be imported into InDesign, because from there you can much more easily format text, especially lots of bodies of text, way faster than that, because in this program you have to highlight each bit of text that you want to mess with individually. It is a pain in the butt. So that's a lot of stuff with InDesign. Or Illustrator. Let me just show one more thing though. So one thing that's cool with this program is that you can draw completely outside of the, like just 100% outside of the board. It will not show up if I if I went up here, went to export and said like, give me, you could hit export as, and it would give you like an option to make a PDF out of it or a JPEG. It gives you a lot of things. You can see all these options. Actually, I don't know if you can, but it gives you JPEG, PDF, all sorts of things. If you want to save it as another Adobe file, you can go to save as or save a copy. I think save a copy will automatically save it in the file format that it is. If you want to save it into something like, if I wanted to send this to InDesign, I would hit save as, and it will give me an option to do that. I think it'll let you transfer it into any of the Adobe Creative Suite. Stop it. But what I was going to show you with this is that I created a little polygon. I'm also going to scoot this over some. So this thing right here is the gradient tool. So if I do this, I can click and it automatically applies a gradient for me. And then if I don't like it this way, I can draw it myself like this. And then I can squeeze it this way, or hey, it's a little finicky. I will warn you about that. Stop it. So you have to be careful when you're clicking on this stuff, but and it is especially finicky with this, you can change these colors, but it is usually kind of a pain. So I'm gonna do blue into a kind of green. And then I'm going to rotate this shape a little. And hey. I will warn you when you do this, it is going to show up on the layer in which you created it. So I've actually made a mistake here by doing this. Although since I'm going to kind of save this file just kind of what it looks like now, it's not a huge mistake. It's really hard to move a shape from one layer to another. So I would warn you to pretty much always be very careful and make sure you are on the layer you want the object, because it is an absolute pain in the tail to, wait, give me a second. So if you want to do that though, the way that you would is make sure you're selected on it and then change the layer you want. And then you can scroll down to this, send to current layer. It can sometimes be significantly fussier about it, but tonight I'm getting a little lucky. I'm going to say it's because I have an audience for once. And then let's see here. I want to align all these things. So I'm going to hit Control Shift and then select each of these objects that I created. And I'm going to go to Properties and I'm going to align them with this, the horizontal alignment. That way I know that they're all kind of in the same area. And then I'm going to go back to this and I'm going to lock it. Okay, so with the gradient thing though, I'm lying, I'm not going to lock it. You can actually apply multiple types of gradients. I would usually suggest either staying with only the linear or this radial gradient, which just changes it into kind of a interior to exterior. It will typically keep the color that you kept originally put it in, although I have now kind of there we go. So yeah, and then one last trick I would tend to show you is, at this point, it's a little bit of a moot point, but when you're starting, a lot of times you want to, if you have stuff that you think you might include in your file, but you don't necessarily know if you'll use it or not. Like, let's say I was originally talking about naming this program or this, whatever this is, Kieran. And let's just make that larger so you all can see it. Maybe not that large. You can individually size it using this thing here, or you can use the automatically suggested stuff with these arrows. It just depends on what you want. And you can also create a sort of color key. So I like to, when I do this, make sure that if you're going to copy a shape, click off it, then click it, Control Shift, and then so it can be pretty finicky. You can either draw them individually or you can Control Shift. I typically like to Control Shift because I like having everything being more or less the same shape, but if it doesn't drive you crazy to have multiple versions of the same shape around, then once you have as many color boxes as you think you'll need, you can just kind of, so I'm going to, I want to color this. Let's say I want this color, like I'm thinking about maybe recoloring this whole image, but I want to make sure that I save my original palette. I'm going to come up here with this little eyedropper tool, click, and it turns it into whatever the shape has. So as you can see, it actually applied the gradient for me to this shape. So that's one thing you'll want to be careful about. It applies pretty much as much as possible of the shape that you steal from. So, and then you can go click. And that's just kind of some basic stuff. With the gradient stuff, if I wanted to edit this gradient here, hey, I can actually go to this thing. Or let's say I want to make sure these greens are the exact same color. I can go here, and once I've selected this little ball here, which lets me say what color slider I'm affecting, I can go to this thing, and then whatever color I click next is what that will turn into. So that's a really fast way to make sure that you're getting the correct color. I would typically suggest this is one of the first things you should do when you open a design, is just whatever you think your color palette is going to be, make sure that you have that kind of stuff laid out on outside of your canvas, but on the board. And yeah, so that's kind of the basics of Illustrator. Does anybody want me to get a little more specific?
This is really helpful, Caitlin. Thanks. I'm on mute, so you can't hear, but the whole time I've been making ooh ah noises as you do things. So it's got some great features that like I said, I've only played around with a little bit. So watching you design this completely from scratch gives me hope. Like, okay, I could learn this.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad this is helpful to some of you. Let me see. I just want to maybe show something. Okay, so it doesn't want to do that. So let's try this. Okay, wow. So okay, so it's not gonna let me do this tonight, but you can usually go, if you want to work on multiple things at once, you can come up here to File, go to Open, or Open Recent Files. I usually can use recent files because most of the time the things I'm working on are the same kind of place. So where did it go? Like say I want to open let's see if it'll open it for me. So this is something I designed at another point. It's a little rough. I never quite finished this project, but this is the kind of stuff that you can actually end up creating. I hope you all can see this. But
Oh, yep, we can see it.
yeah, so I have obviously the typography on one page. The way that I did this was creating like the base color, like this really strong outer color between the glow and this internal little lighter line. Typed that, then added a glow effect. I actually had to add two different glow effects. I had to add an exterior glow and an interior glow. It is exceptionally finicky. I would not suggest doing this most of the time unless you want a very specific effect, because you will have to layer a lot of elements on top of each other. But it's just kind of the stuff that you can create. So I have not changed anything. I'm going to hit no. But yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that you can do. So unless anybody has any other questions that they want me to like mess around with, I might close this program for tonight. Although maybe I should save this because it's actually a little cool and a little funny to me.
Yeah, not seeing any current questions or comments in the chat, but this was a great showcase of Illustrator, and I like all the features that it has.
Okay, since it's late, I would just ask, does anybody want me to show InDesign, or would you prefer to cut things here?
I'm good for either. I think it would be good to go through the basics of InDesign, and we actually just got someone entering the waiting room right now, so we still got some attendance.
Okay, well, I'm gonna try to make InDesign a little quicker because it's not as it's obviously complicated, but it's not for a lot of what like students like us would be seeing. It's not typically as harsh. If you want to really get into it, I would totally suggest looking up some of the LinkedIn learning classes. Typically the 6-hour ones are really good. Okay, Rebecca says she has to go, but yeah, thank you and have a good night. But yeah, I would 100% suggest whenever looking for a course when it comes to this stuff, you really want to get some of the longer bits because they will go as in-depth as you want, and they're really accessible because you can just skip around as much as you need to. So without further ado, let me load the InDesign. And for this, I think I'm just going to open one of my resumes. As long as it's just a little easier for me. Ignore the classified thing. That was for a project for creative writing stuff. So yeah, and this is what you can kind of create using InDesign. It's, like I said, what I really like to use for my resumes because you can create all these little boxes. So I think so far in this, let me switch to the text tool. So what I've done here is in this specific document, I have 4 different heading types. Well, and what I've done is you can come over here. This thing right here lets you have all of these styles for each text thing, and depending on what you do. So this is my title style. I think I'm using a copper plate font. Hey, stop it. InDesign, I'm not in the mood for this. Thank you. Yeah, but let's say that I, for some reason, decided that tiny is end. I could go to this and hit paragraph style 1. Hello. Wait, did I accidentally? Oh, basic paragraph, sorry. I forgot that I had a thing that I accidentally messed with, but yeah, I could do that and it will automatically change it to fit with the rest of this stuff for me. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to pop it back to title. So each of these boxes I have is kind of a self-contained section. If I wanted to just move this all the way over here, I can move it back and it will actually help me align it with these other text boxes. It's a little finicky sometimes with these lines. You have to kind of experiment a little. Come on. But it'll help you kind of space things really well. But let's say I'm considering making a new bit of text. Opposed to Illustrator, this program will not give you filler text, so it can sometimes make it very hard to see where the end of your box is. So if you want to create a box, but you don't want to fill it out yet, I would suggest pulling up a lorem ipsum generator and kind of filling it, and then leaving the box because they don't have borders in this, and it makes it very hard to select them if you don't have text. So I'm going to type something like, hello, all, it's been a long night. And let's say I want to possibly test out a new style. What you want to do before is you want to format this text however you want your style. So let's say I'm testing out a new header. So I'm going to select this because I want it to be my header. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to, let's just go full out with the kind of crazy stuff. I'm going to bump it up to 48 size. And then what I would do is I can click this little button right here, and what it does is it lets me add a new style. So that anything else that I put in this, so I'm going to put crazy header, and I'm going to hit enter. Now, any text that I select, I can go here and I can click this, and it will automatically apply it for me. So that's how you add new styles in this. I'm going to warn you that when you add a style in this, it is exceptionally hard to get rid of it. Like, it is an absolute pain on that score to delete a style once you created it. Usually you can just edit it from here, so be careful before you change things. But there are a lot of options in here. You can change what kind of fonts. You can put a strike through. I would typically not suggest that unless you just are trying to be sarcastic, but most of the time take out stuff. Yeah, you can see all these options. There's just a lot of them. Most of the time I would suggest trying to stay as basic as possible while you're still trying to learn. So I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to change anything right now. And now that I'm considering it, I don't really want to have this text at all. So what I'm going to do is highlight it all and hit delete. That will not get rid of the text box. Wow, they're stubborn here. Okay, that's why, sorry. You have to select it with this tool here. It's the same as the Illustrator version. And hit delete, and that will get rid of the element. So with InDesign, in this one, it's a little bit of a bad example because I don't have multiple pages in this, but you can add pages. They're kind of your versions of canvases in this. Actually, while I'm talking about it before I forget, let me see if I can find my example of the one thing where I do have multiple pages. I'm sorry, y'all, this is taking just a little bit longer than I meant to. All right, where'd it go? Okay, give me a second. I'm just gonna have to do this a kind of longer way around. Let me see if it'll open it for me. So yeah, like I said, this is for a creative writing assignment, so that explains the kind of crazier text. But as you can see, when I open this, it lets me see the kind of pages that I have. So please, all right, you. So I can scroll up and down. Let me zoom out just a little bit so it shows a bit better. So these are kind of your canvas boards, and what you do, you'll usually want to add as many of them as you're going to have in a certain document. Try to estimate that before you create it. But you can dictate the size, and as long as you click a little checkbox, it will make all of them the exact same size most of the time. With InDesign, it will always display it in this kind of book style, so it'll have your first page on the right pretty much always, unless you go out of your way to dictate for it not to. And then it will go to 2-page spreads as long as an element, as long as it lasts. If I wanted to add a page, it would add it before this one. I don't really want to do that though for this assignment. So I'm going to hit Control Z. and leave it there, but for each of these, or actually let me do that again real fast, sorry, just to show a couple basic things. So it will add it after the page that you clicked. So I clicked 5, it now adds a page 6 for me. I don't have any images because I created all these background image thingies in Illustrator and I imported them over. So, but if I want this just to kind of match everything else, I would click this and kind of draw the shape. It'll snap to, and then I want to do that and click this and put it here, and now it has the same background color as everything else. So now I can add like a text box real fast that just says, hello and thank you for reading and attending. Thank you for attending my workshop. I'm hoping I spelled workshop. So it will always put it in this basic paragraph style. That's just what it does. So you will always have to go back, highlight the text you want, and then go to what you want it to be in. And that will, so I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting lost myself. I'm hoping though that you're seeing how this kind of works in the basic sense. I'm going to undo all this though, because I don't want another page. I would show you how to import an AI file into this, but I don't have anything set up right now where I could. I'm sorry about that. But I hope that that can be at least a little helpful. In this, you have a line tool. You do not have you have the pen in this. It kind of works the same way as an Illustrator. So I can just do that. But you also have the basic line tool, which just kind of lets you go. I don't really know why they created 2 versions of it. I think it's mainly the pen tool. They expect you to make a full shape. But you don't necessarily need to. I think the pencil tool is basically the same thing as the pen tool. It just gives it more of a stylized. Oh wait, no, it doesn't. Sorry, I had to experiment myself real fast. So what the pencil tool does is it kind of lets you draw any weird shape you want. It kind of automatically creates points. So let me zoom in on this. And just like in Illustrator, you can click on a specific point in this and you can edit the curves. You don't. So yeah, if you like had to sign your name, this is how you would do it. I would definitely suggest if you're going to be using tools like these, that you really want to make sure that you have either a mouse, like an actual computer mouse, or a tablet that is specifically for drawing. Otherwise, you are going to end up getting carpal tunnel, and it is not fun. The scissors tool, I think that is for cutting out shapes. I don't use it very often. I would typically suggest make sure that any images you're going to import into this program look the way you want them through Illustrator or Photoshop before you import them. The gradient tool works the same as in Illustrator. I think the page tool is just kind of another way to do this stuff. So as long as this kind of makes sense, you probably got it. And then this little weirdo is the hand tool. It doesn't actually do much. What it lets you do is kind of click and drag your way around. So it's just kind of a way of navigating. I don't typically prefer it because you can get around just as easy using these little arrow dudes on the side of the little scroll bar and using, you know, a basic scroll thing. But if you prefer to use that, that's an option. I kind of feel like I'm rambling, so does anybody have any questions?
Not a question from me, but I will now always be referring to the arrows as arrow dudes because I love that. But so far the chat is pretty clear. So
All right. I hope that means that I'm doing a good job rather than that I've lost all of you like 10 minutes ago.
absolutely. And this is a great manual. InDesign is a powerful tool.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't used it as much as I probably could, so I'm not quite the expert, but there are obviously a lot of resources that you can access, especially through UCF. One course I would suggest that you take if you have interest in this stuff is GRA 2101C. It is the introduction course to these programs. It's taught by Ashley Taylor. She's a very good instructor and she's very friendly and stuff. It's how I kind of got into learning these things. So I would definitely kind of say if you have interest and you have the time, go for it. So any last minute questions, comments, or concerns? I know it's kind of late, so I feel like maybe we should be wrapping things up.
Yeah, and anyone can feel
Thanks
free
again,
to
Caitlin. This is really,
open the mic.
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say this is really helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay, well, if nobody else has anything to say, I'm going to stop sharing. So last chance to ask about something in this.
I guess when it comes to just the classes you're taking and just tech on classes in general, which tool would you recommend people pick up? Or if someone were to start, which tool would you say this is a really good one to use?
Okay, so from my perspective, I actually haven't used these for too many of my classes just because a lot of them don't expect students to buy quite as expensive of software. But I have used this before. Like I would definitely suggest if you're going to get into it, if you have photo design like experience, you might want to try Photoshop. If you don't, I would tend to suggest Illustrator just because it tends to be the most forgiving of the lot. You can undo a lot easier in that. You can kind of 100% just bomb your page and kind of restart from scratch. It's just a lot easier in my mind, but it's partially, I think that might be partially due to personal bias. I'm going to stop the share real fast. Other programs so that you can kind of get similar effects with. John, I know you mentioned Pixelate is a lot like Photoshop. You can kind of get away with mimicking a lot of Illustrator's functions with PowerPoint, like from the Microsoft suite. And if you want a free version of something that's like Photoshop, check out GIMP. It is kind of hard to pick up, but if you can find a good manual, it acts a lot like it. So that's a good way to train if you need to.
Yeah, those are each great ones, and I'll drop the links to those in the chat in case anyone wants to try them out.
Okay, anything else anybody has?
Yeah, and I guess you said, this is my last question. You said that you didn't use them for school too much, but you've used them for personal projects. So like, what are some examples of when it came in useful or that you like to use it?
Well, I kind of like doing my own art stuff a lot. So I find, because I like using colored pencils and a lot of graphite stuff, which is really cool in person, but when you scan it into a computer, it doesn't look too good. So what I like to do is scan it into a computer, add it to Illustrator, and then the way that I showed you guys to trace over, something like that, I'll add it as a reference, then go over it again, and then basically transfer it into a digital file because I don't really do well with creating digital files from scratch. So that's a really good way to make art if you don't feel comfortable just using the program to go from blank page to masterpiece. I've also really liked making promotional materials in these programs. John, I know I showed you a pamphlet at once that I made for the club. I would share it with you all, but it would take me a while to dig it up. It's old at this point.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, those each sound like useful ways. And something like the pamphlet, yeah, that's something like InDesign or Illustrator will be powerful to use. Oh, I think I heard you for just a moment, Jessica. Sorry if I cut you off though, in case you wanted to say anything.
No, I just want to say you did a great job, and I have to drop off, but it's been years since I've really used them, and a lot of the basics are still the same. So I just thought you did a great job of covering a lot of the basic stuff, because I haven't had to use it professionally for a while, but it's still the basics. They're the bells and whistles. Learning the basics, you will always be able to go back and use any tool, and you did a great job of covering those. So I just wanted to compliment you.
Well, thank you. I have to admit, at this point, I think I'm losing my voice a bit. So I think
Yeah, you covered a lot of great stuff. So I guess since we don't have any other questions in the chat, now could be a good place to call it if you'd like to. Alrighty,
Well,
I think we're set.
And go get a lozenge. You earned it.
Okay, well, thank you to everybody who did stick around this long. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming. And last minute, I'll drop again the link to FGC's platforms and all that on our link tree in case you aren't connected with us yet. You can find our Discord, our membership application for just looking out for news, for more meetings like this, or for fun socials in the future, resources, things like that. And thanks again, Caitlyn, for just presenting. It was a really great presentation. So, and thanks everybody for coming through.
Bye, guys. Hope you have a good night.
Good night, everyone.